Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Discover New Music podcast from us at Pelt Music. Shortly, I'll be joined by Mallavora to discuss their new EP, Echoes, which is out on November the 20th. But before then, it's the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, whatever you're watching or listening. Welcome, Larry, to the Discover New Music podcast. Absolutely
Hi.
delighted to have you on today to discuss everything going on in the world of Mallavora. First question for me on this Friday night as we speak. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. I'm pretty excited because obviously we've got some new music coming out soon, and there's a whole lot of work that goes in before that. We're like 2 weeks out now, so you know, these are songs that we've been working on for a little while, and it's it's the culmination of a lot of work. And I think for us, I think what's weird is um, when we wrote the songs that are now being released or now about to be released, we didn't know that they were going to be released at all because we got the record deal through the Kerrang radio competition earlier this year, and we decided to write the EP when we got into the semi-finals because we basically took the view of if we won and had no songs, because like we knew, like we were told that if you win, you kind of go straight into the studio. So we were like, we need to have some songs. So if we win, we're all good. If we don't win, well, we've got some songs. That's not really a bad thing for a band to have more songs in our back pocket. But we had a whole different plan for this year that if we were, still an independent band, that was going to happen, which is being sort of changed into future things, which aren't to be discussed. But yeah, so it's pretty weird to be sitting here and talking about songs that are one, it wasn't that long ago when we weren't even sure that the songs would even be heard by anyone at all. So yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a great time to be talking to you. And you're, uh, I think the at least the second. I'm trying to think of who else I've had. I think you're the third band I've had on the podcast that has won the deal.
Okay.
Is what I'm getting at. Marshall Records are a fantastic label, and obviously some great bands that we've had on the podcast from Marshall. And it's such an amazing opportunity for a band to get to obviously record in the Marshall studios, and obviously you get part of that as well. We get to play Download Festival, which I mean is a dream for everyone. So I mean, before we get into sort of the normal first question that I like to ask, just on the deal and obviously how it's gone for you. What have you made obviously of that opportunity? What a great opportunity it must have been.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. I mean, we applied. It was about a year ago when we applied, maybe slightly less. I think they're probably about to open again for next year, aren't they? And as a band, uh, we're all quite used to applying for things and not getting them, or like being in a band is like 99% being ignored over email by people. I think for things that you want, tours or festivals or whatever it is, it's just part of the deal is you're asking for stuff and you don't get most of it. That's just kind of how it works. So when we applied, it was just another one of those things. Obviously, really exciting thing, but you can't get your hopes up too much because you do that about everything. It's like constant. So um, when we found out I think it was January when we found out that we were in the semi-finals, we were like, okay, this is interesting, and most importantly, it was something that for the semi-finals at least was in our control because we had to get as many votes as possible from all our fans and things like that. And so for the week window where we were able to get as many votes as we could, we were making like I think we made about 10 TikToks a day as a band for the whole week, and constantly trying to harangue people to vote for us. We were going around Bristol, all the venues that we play and support us, and putting up posters. And it was really nice to get the support from the scene and all the people who have kind of discovered our music over the years. And yeah, and then we got through to the final, and we were pretty happy with that because after that point, it was no longer within our control. It gets judged by a panel of 10 music industry kind of heavyweight kind of professionals, people from Marshall and Download and Kerrang and whatnot, and they listened to our music and obviously thought that we were the ones to choose, which is yeah, absolutely insane. And for us, playing Download Festival has always been a goal, as it probably is for every rock and metal band. But for me particularly, I've been to Download every year since 2012, I think, as a punter, and it's always been a festival that's inspired me, and it's kind of the reason why I'm in a band at all is having gone to this festival as a kid, and then went to uni, met some people, started a band, and it kind of, if I hadn't been to Download every year, it's like it's all part of the story as to why we even bothered trying at all, and so then to end up doing it so early in our career, really, um, is yeah, it's absolutely mad.
It is. It's so romantic to hear. I mean, I'm a download goer every year since 20 what was it, 2007, my first one, and I've
Wow,
been every year since. And like it's
crazy.
just something I do now, routine. I don't even think about it. It's like, oh, it's
Yeah,
June, I'm off to download. And it's
yeah, it's part of the calendar.
exactly, and yeah, I love that. This competition, this deal, obviously allows bands to get that platform and go and play that, and yeah, it's fantastic. And as you say, it's probably opening up again around about this time. So bands, if anyone's listening to this in a band, just chuck your name in the hat. You might as well. Yeah, you got enough to lose. Like you say, so many emails that go unanswered, but you never know that all it takes is that one to get answered by the right person, and opportunities
Yeah.
like this can come about. So it's absolutely fantastic, and a nice segue really, because the first question on this podcast, the Discover New Music podcast, is to help people discover some new music and get to know a bit about the people, the bands we're interviewing, and it's called the origin story, which is kind of grandiose for what it really is just how the band come together. And I believe you sort of touched on it a little bit in that introduction. So before sending that email, what is the story of Mallavora? How did you come together, the four of you?
So yeah, so myself, Ellis, and Jack met in Birmingham at university, and we just for a few years just spent quite a lot of time jamming and figuring out how we wanted to play, how we wanted to write. It wasn't at that time particularly serious. We were really passionate about it, but we didn't really have a clear picture of how it was going to ever become a career, or um, how we would ever end up, playing Download and signed to a record label, for example. Um, but it was for a while. It was really just about the music and really about trying to find our voice. We'd all been players for a while, but we were conscious that it's actually quite hard to find your sound, even if you have a strong identity of what music you like, and what music you don't like. It still took us quite a long time to find the voice, and just the kind of song structures and harmonies and things like that we like. And then fast forward to like 2019, that's when Jess joined the band. We played a festival with her, and afterwards we're just like, yeah, we're definitely onto something here. This is the sound. It was still very early days, still figuring it out, and but it was obvious that, like, yes, this is on the right track now. And then from there it got a lot more serious, and we did our debut EP. We recorded it in 2019 and then released it in 2020 over lockdown, um, which was great. And then spent the next few years kind of getting a little bit heavier, and um, just trying to think of the band as something that was a bit truer to our own personal interests. Really, I think um, if you listen to our debut EP and then our Origins EP that came out in 2023, um, every release just kind of gets heavier, because that's kind of just how our tastes are going, and we're finding a way to express a bit more, I guess, aggression and anger and frustration with the music. And yeah, and then really the sort of the catalyst for things going a bit crazy for us was in February 2023. We had a song that went viral on TikTok. Um, and before that, we didn't really have any and much traction at all. We were playing plenty of shows and stuff, but we probably had about 100, maybe 150 listeners like monthly listeners on Spotify. It was like no real traction from anywhere. And then we released a song called Disorder, which was this quite adventurous song for us. It was 2.5 minutes, which is very unusual for us, but like really, really quick and snappy and aggressive, inspired by people like Wargasm. And it was a song where our vocalist Jess used it as a way to channel her frustrations with being disabled through music. That was like the first time she'd ever done that. She was quite nervous about it because she'd never um, tried doing that before, and it's obviously quite a personal thing. But it like immediately went viral, and the reception to the song was just insane. We got so like straight after that, we got played on Radio One, we got booked for 2000 Trees Festival. All these crazy things started happening. Um, we went from like yes, like I said, having like 100 listeners on Spotify to having like 15,000 in the space of a few months, and it's kind of stayed there since. To be honest, like
Yeah.
it's um uh yeah, and then we released an EP and we started playing headline shows, um and then yeah, fast forward to the end of last year, we played loads and loads of great shows across the country, and uh, signed up for this Kerrang deal thing, and then won it in February of this year.
Yeah, and then the rest, as they say, is history, isn't it? I mean, it's a fantastic story, a fantastic journey, and obviously, it's fascinating for me. I asked that question as by way of an introduction for fans that maybe obviously are checking out this podcast and not fully yet conversant with the band, just to give a bit of a background. But I get to hear so many different sort of stories,
Mm,
and the one what jumps out with yours is again just that perseverance, I guess. It is a
yeah,
tough music industry. It's just like getting harder and harder. There's so many bands out there that obviously want to be able to, you know, just have their art heard. Perhaps allow that to make a living for them in the future. But just cut through the noise and to be heard. And
yeah,
you talked about the emails going unanswered. You talked about obviously, sort of slugging away for a while and obviously not really seeing much traction until obviously
mm,
obviously having a bit of a sort of a hit with disorder, and obviously then seeing things pick up from there. And again, just like persevere. The spark may well come. Whether it's that email that got answered by the deal, whether it was appearing at 2000 Trees, whatever it may be. Just it's a great sort of message, I think, for bands listening again, just to keep going really. And
yeah, absolutely. It's
yeah,
it is hard. I mean, I would say for me personally, not necessarily just Mallavora, but I mean, I've been trying to do the band thing probably since I was like 13. I'm 28 now. Like since I was at school, I've always been like trying to start a band. It's not worked out. Struggling with people committing to it, or and then you all go to uni, and you all move away, and then you try something else, and then you try something that's not quite right. And there's it's iterations and iterations and iterations of just trying to make music, and it all comes down to really being inspired when you're a kid. I think a lot of people. I mean, like for me, it's the easy one. I went to see Alter Bridge in 2011 at Newcastle Arena. The next year, I then went to Download for the first time, and the next year I went to Reading and Leeds for the first time, and then the same year went to Bloodstock. So in that sort of 2 year period, although being quite young, I'd been exposed to these really incredible shows and really imprinted on me like that's how you do it, and just being like, wow, this is cool. I'd like to do that, please. And then sort of immediately went to school and was like, okay, let's try and make this work. And it took absolutely ages to get to a point where I was in a room with three other people who also understood the idea, and we were like, right, how do we do this? And that's the start of the story. I mean, and that isn't even the start of the Malivora story. That's just the start of like just trying to give it a proper go, and that took years to get to that point. And and then yeah, like you say, from the point of actually starting the band, then you start from zero, and you have no listeners, no one cares, and nor should they at that point. You've got no songs, and then you start writing music that's pretty bad, and then it's you kind of have to evolve it over time. And really, if the fire burning inside you all isn't really 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 powerful from those the early inspirational experiences, then I think you just like you say, won't persevere. And I see a lot of bands that um, probably have all of the ingredients that they need. Um, give it a go for 5 or so years, and then pack it in. And you know, there's all sorts of reasons why that happens, obviously, but yeah, you really do have to, unless you're really lucky, you really do have to stick it out for years and years and
yeah.
years, and keep keep it evolving and reinventing it. And if things aren't working, trying to figure out why. And when things do work, you sort of have to take stock and think, right, what happened there? How can I repeat that? Like we were so lucky in that, like I said before, Disorder went viral on TikTok. Then our next single went viral on TikTok. Um, and I mean that EP, their Origins, it had in its first year had like over 500,000 streams, and we were a band that the previous release had less than 10 times that for the previous EP. And yeah, you've really got to look into your, like, if you do get a little blip of things going well, you really have to look into things like your demographics, who's listening to you, and how and why, and really trying to understand your audience, because if you don't, the moment will pass and things will slip away again.
Yeah, no, that's so insightful, though. It really, really is. Yeah, and I'm sure is really useful information for aspiring musicians, out there that want to get to the point of obviously releasing music to the level that you are, and obviously that does sort of bring us on to Echoes. Obviously, for listeners to the podcast, it's out on the 20th of this month, 20th of November, and I've had a sneak peek. I've been writing my review for it. It's a really, really positive review because I've just really enjoyed it. You really have found, like this great sound, that you're putting out there, and we'll talk a bit about the creation of the EP in a moment. But yeah, I'm going to stick with tradition, and tradition for me on this podcast is to ask about the single that was featured over on the accompanying podcast playlist rather that we have. And for yourselves, it's not enough, your latest single. So before we get further into the EP, just on the track alone, what is that song about? What does it mean to you, and how did it come together?
Sure. So I think the thing to illustrate first is in our songwriting process is quite a considered and specific thing that we do. So how it starts is I will write an instrumental, or at least the concept of an instrumental on my own mostly. Um, and the purpose behind that is to capture a very specific feeling. That's kind of how it starts. All of the collaboration with everybody else and turning it into a song comes after, and kind of tries to return to what emotion are we trying to portray to the listener. So in this case, with There's Not Enough, it was to do with my own personal battle. So over the last 2.5 years, I've been struggling with long COVID. So I had COVID in 2022, and I still haven't recovered. It's been a whole thing, and it's been a very, very difficult time for all sorts of different reasons, as it is for 2 million other people who also have it. And I was really sitting with this feeling of um, uncertainty and fear of the future and anxiety, and um, really kind of struggling with the idea that we really, really don't know what is around the corner. And that's obviously that can have positive and negative reasons for that. But I had a huge life-changing thing happen to me that I had no idea was coming and could not prepare for it, no matter how hard I could have tried. There was absolutely no way. And so it just kind of started for me really, really sitting with that feeling. And that's why there's quite a lot of dissonance in the track, particularly in like the lead guitars. If you listen to it, you can hear these kind of like clashy notes, and it really kind of portrays that feeling and gives it that kind of anguish, which it's trying to portray. So that's kind of where the sort of initial song started, and then me, Elle, and Jack get together and turn that idea into like a proper song with like proper drums and proper bass. Which is where it gets the like Mallavora sound from it, and then we hand it over to Jess, and obviously we have quite a unique kind of creative dialogue between myself and Jess, because she has her own journey with disability and chronic illness, which she's had for her whole life pretty much, but I'm now chronically ill as of the last 2.5 years or so. So although our experiences are very different, but there are a lot of things that we can relate to each other on. And so when we sat down for this song in particular, and I was explaining the reasons behind writing the song and the kind of things I was trying to get across, and we had this kind of conversation about um, how our illnesses and how our body's letting us down at times makes us feel, and yeah, how that makes us feel uncertain about the future and all that kind of thing. And then she puts her own spin on that from her own experience, and then puts the vocals on it from there. So what you're listening to really is that creative dialogue between two people who are suffering with the limitations of their own health, and how that makes us feel um, existentially, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's really again insightful, fascinating to hear you talk about obviously that process of how the song comes together, and obviously the meanings behind it. I mean, I've got a bullet point kind of for later in the podcast, but yeah, I will just sort of jump in with it now and say, I've got so much respect and sort of give so much credit to you as a band for obviously discussing the disability issue, but in obviously interviews like this, but obviously in the themes of the songs. I've got a number of sort of friends and family that suffer from a range of disabilities, and my son in particular uh, got is himself a range of challenges and disabilities that he has to deal with. And I know, from the live side of things that you try to obviously only play venues that are accessible, which is such a massive thing. And people such as myself that don't personally have to deal with challenges of getting to see live music. It's such a big thing, for people such as my son to be properly catered for, to be able to go into a venue and have that equality of not having to worry necessarily about, oh, I'm not going to be able to see, I'm not going to be able to hear, I'm not going to be able to even get into the venue, whatever it may be that is the barrier to them.
Mm.
I say it is difficult because I talk about independent venues and the struggles that they have on this podcast a lot, and obviously there's financial challenges that are presented to a venue to try and make themselves accessible. But there's great organisations out there that can help them with doing so. But obviously, for a band such as yourselves to just put that spotlight on it a little bit to raise that awareness, so much respect for you for doing so. And I guess just what say thanks as well. As the father of someone that obviously is going to have challenges with that. So yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
thank you. Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge thing that as an industry, as a scene, we have to address it. We can't shy away from it. In the UK, about 1 in 5 people have some form of disability. Um, and I think anyone who participates in the grassroots music uh, scene, going to small venues and things like that, will know that most small venues are not accessible in this country. So we have two things which are competing there. We have 20% of the population probably have some difficulties or other um, accessing live music, and that sucks. And it doesn't have to be like that. And yeah, obviously there are difficulties with venues. A thing we hear all the time is there are a lot of venues that have limited budget, or maybe it's an old listed building or something, so you can't put in lifts or whatever. But I think we think that attitude, like the charity, our attitude is everything.
Yeah.
There is so much that you can do for free that people aren't doing as well. So when people say, "Oh, we haven't got a budget," I kind of um, that that kind of slips over me a little bit sometimes, because I mean, like for example, we're putting on a launch show in London for our EP that's coming out on the 20th, on the same day, on the 20th of November in London, and we're making it the most accessible headline show that we've ever put on. As you said, we've made a commitment to only headlining wheelchair accessible venues, and there are a number of other things that we're putting in place. For example, we're having a BSL interpreter for the first time, which we're really, really excited about. So they'll be interpreting the whole performance, us and the two support bands as well. We're so excited about that. And we never have any strobe at our events, which is a big thing. That's for free. Um, for me, I think strobe is a huge thing. For a lot of people struggle with it in various ways, and there's like a lot of times you go to a show and they'll just say, "Oh, there's going to be some flashing lights," and then they just blitz you with strobe.
Bombard you, yeah.
Yeah, and I get it; it's a creative thing and it looks cool and stuff, but it excludes so many people that I just don't think it's worth it in my view. Um, and Yeah, and another thing that we do for free is we put a break in our headline set. So rather than playing for an hour plus, we put a 15-minute break in there, and that's partly for us because myself and Jess have our own problems with fatigue, and pacing really allows us to pace, and also for our fans. I mean, the fact that we use our music to discuss and explore disability and chronic illness means that when it resonates with our audience, we have a lot of disabled people listening to our music and therefore coming to our shows. So we have a responsibility to look after them and put on shows that they can actually attend.
Yeah.
If we were just ignorant to it and just played, like the Black Heart or whatever, like everyone else, quite a lot of our fans would not be able to come to our shows, which is just stupid. So yeah, we really try and put a lot of thought and effort into making the shows as accessible as possible. And it is hard with the size of band that we are, although we're growing, we're still playing, 200 cap and lower rooms. And even in London, it's hard to find venues that are accessible. And there's always a compromise, like for example, the venue we're playing in November is pretty good. It's wheelchair accessible. It's got an accessible toilet, plenty of space. There'll be a seated area, all that kind of stuff. There's no the thing that we always really try and get if we can is a quiet space that the people can go off into a quiet space. There is like an outdoor terrace, but it's not a wheelchair accessible terrace. It's less like a step, which is annoying. So in order to kind of counter that, although it's not perfect, what we're doing is we'll be providing some little sensory kits free of charge for everyone who's going there to kind of, if they need a bit of a break, we've got some it'll be things like hearing protection and some sunglasses and like a fidget toy or something, so people can just kind of escape a little bit if they're not able to get outside. Plus, it's going to be in the end of November, so an outdoor terrace isn't really that great because we'd be like -2 by the time the gig finishes. But yeah, there's always, I think, the thing that we want to impress on people, first of all, to people who might want to come, which is that we put a lot of time and effort into trying to make our shows as welcoming and safe for as many people as possible. And we really care about people being able to attend our shows with and remove as many barriers as we can. But also to other people who are maybe in other bands or promoters or venues or whatever, we're trying to show that it can be done, and there are things that you can do for free or cheap. And also, frankly, it's not good business to exclude 20% of the population out of your events. The reason why we do it isn't for business reasons, because we do it because it affects us personally. I mean, I've been to shows where if I can't stand up for that long, so I
Yeah.
go to shows and I go in an accessible seated area and it's shoved off to one side. There's a flimsy barrier that doesn't protect you from the mosh pit at all, and it always crashes into you. And you're off the side, you're nowhere near the PA. All you can hear is kick drum, and you can't see anything. And you think, I paid the same as everyone else for this.
Yeah.
I've just not been considered at all. So we basically, because we experienced that ourselves, we just want the opposite of that. So like our headline shows, we have wheelchair users on the front row, so they're like right at the front, and we put all of these things in place. And the bigger we grow, the more accessibility features we'll add, and the more inclusive the shows will be. And we've got some pretty big ambitions and ideas about how to make a fully inclusive show for bigger productions. Obviously, there's only so much you can do in a small 200 cap
Of
room, but
course.
as we grow, we have loads of ideas about things, spatial audio and things like haptic technology, which is um, for example, you can like wear a vest and it like
Yeah.
makes you can like feel the beat, for people who are hard of hearing and things like that. There's all these things that we're sort of constantly thinking about and thinking about how we can implement it as we grow as a band. But what we want to impress on people is it's a creative and exciting thing. It's good
Absolutely.
business sense to not exclude people, and yeah, it should be seen as a positive thing rather than as like a chore, like an afterthought. Oh yeah, we'll put a barrier up, a couple of seats, and then we'll get some complaints, but who cares, kind of thing. We want to flip it on its head and sort of see it as a positive thing that people could engage with.
Absolutely. I love I can hear the passion and I absolutely love it. And I mean, obviously, musically, I hope you become massive, but I now just hope you become massive, even ignoring that, just to see all of this get implemented. And obviously, yeah, it's fantastic. And people, there's this awful habit of, and I was probably guilty of this in my younger days before, obviously, having a son
Mm.
with sort of neurodiverse issues, deafness, and everything that I'm learning more and more. There's a habit of people just picturing with disability that wheelchair user
Yeah,
and thinking, yeah, it's all you
it's
need to do is just put that area there for the wheelchair users. But I mean, I was at a gig last night and I was standing in the queue before we went in, and I could overhear this conversation that was going on near me about, oh well, why's your husband not come? Oh, you know that he struggles with these things. He was going to come, but he just couldn't bring himself to do it because he gets anxiety around coming out to gigs and that. So just it's a waste of a ticket because he's decided on the day that he can't come and do it. So you're talking about obviously the quiet spaces and the sensory kits and all that kind of stuff is absolutely fantastic because again, people out there are probably thinking, oh well, that venue's got a wheelchair area. What's everyone moaning about? Well, there's so many more people that are impacted
mhm.
negatively, and having these barriers put in front of them that, like you say, there's a lot of free fixes that can just make that experience better and easier for people to come out. So I mean, I absolutely love what you're doing and just I say yeah, so much respect for you for doing it, absolutely. And yeah, fantastic. As is, as I say, Echoes, delving back into Echoes, and I want to talk to you about Skin, which came out back in the summer.
Mm.
But I am a massive music video geek, grew up watching music videos before and after school, Krang and Scars and all that. So we have something called Full Pelt TV where we try to keep music videos alive because it is a dying art. And
Mm.
I always like to ask about a music video that a band has put out. And obviously, I've picked Skin. You've got a great live performance video for Skin, but obviously it's got some other elements in there that make it more than just oh, it's just us playing, so it does
Mm.
feed into the themes of it really, really well, I think. So over to you, Larry. With Skin, how did you come up with the concept for it? How did you put it into practice?
Yeah, so Skin music video. We it was the first video we've ever done, and we've done a few videos. It's the first video we've ever done with any sort of budget because this was our first release on a label. This is our first release on Marshall Records. Prior to that, we've always been an independent band, and our music videos we'd always basically done them ourselves. Maybe hired someone with a good camera and made all the props and done all the editing and just done absolutely everything ourselves. Called in favors. We've filmed videos in one of our band members like workplace, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of like done our best. But this one was like part of the deal, part of the prize for the Kerrang deal was not only downloading the EP, but it was budget for a music video. So the first time ever, we were like, you can actually do it properly, and so we were super excited about that, and we did actually have that much time to get it all sorted because, like I said before, like you win the deal, you go in the studio, and then it's like, right, this song needs to come out before you play it download. That's in like 2 weeks now. Like I think the whole thing came together in about in sort of just over 2 weeks, and so we reached out to Murray, who did an absolutely brilliant job. Um, he sourced the location and directed it and shot it, and he was really really creative. And he was like, we'll definitely be using him again. It's absolutely insane the quality of the work that he puts out. And yeah, so we found this found ourselves in this warehouse, which is near where we rehearse sometimes in Bristol, and super kind of like dingy warehouse, huge space as well, and it was like I think it was the hottest day of the year or something. It was like the roof is just all perspex. It was absolutely molten in there, and so we were like taking turns to do our shots, and then like going and sitting on a chair and having someone like pour water over us because it was like the water was like virtually like steaming off. It was like so hot, and yeah, so we really wanted to use the video to translate the feelings behind the song, and I think the space did that really really well. The kind of the colors and the sort of gritty kind of aesthetic of the video was really kind of spot on, and yeah, uh, we had one of our friends feature as a bit of an extra in there with the scenes with the sort of peeling skin, obviously with the song being called Skin and being about essentially the song Skin is about masking and unmasking and for people like us who are neurodivergent and struggle with feeling, generally speaking, feeling different in the world and struggling with social interactions and struggling with how we're perceived and how we navigate uncomfortable social environments and things like that. And so that's what the song is about, both instrumentally and lyrically. And yeah, we were really pleased with how the sort of scenes with the peeling skin came off. We had a makeup artist come and sort out this like fake skin for our friend to peel off her face and stuff, and it all came out really really well.
Yeah, it did really come out really, really well. I say, massive music video geek, and really, really enjoyed the video, and obviously the links with the themes of the song and everything that sort of get in there, because all too often, again, probably financially more than anything, bands will, well, sadly, either not do a video, or if they do a video, it's literally just the yes, this is us in a warehouse, which is
Yeah.
great. But like when you can add extra layers like you have there, it just
Mm.
does just bring it out and help the listener just engage with that art even more. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. And listeners, listening to the podcast, as always, there are links in the bio. So click on these links and go and watch the video and check out these tracks that we're talking about. And if you're listening to this podcast after the 20th, check out Echoes the EP, which I say we're gonna have a really positive review coming out from. We've heard a bit about it already. The to close out talking about Echoes, I just want to obviously flag up. You've got to work with like icon really, Mikey Demus from
Mm.
Skindred, on the EP.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, I the first time I saw Skindred was at Reading at the Leeds Festival in 2013. They opened the main stage, and my friend took us. It was like pretty early. We were hungover and took us to see Skindred, and I'd never heard of them, and I was instantly blown away, and I've been a fan ever since, and seen them probably the most out of any band I've ever seen. I've definitely seen them over 10 times, and um, yeah, such an incredible band. And so then, like after we won the deal, just to top everything off, like we were pretty happy as it was. And then we were speaking to the label manager, and he was like, "So we think we're gonna." So like we've been looking at producers. We're thinking of Mikey Demus, and we were like, "Yes, yes, that's a yes from us. No consideration needed." Um, and yeah, absolutely surreal experience to um, be working behind the scenes with someone who we've all looked up to for so long, and have him um, just like put his magic over our music. And he really is a creative genius. There are little sparkles of things that he just sort of picks out of thin air. He needs this. Add this thing. Just change that slightly. And there was this. I think my favorite moment was we were doing echoes, or I think we just tracked drums for echoes. And before we got on to doing bass, he was like, "Guys, I've got this idea for this song." And in my case, people who've seen Skindred will know he's a lefty. So he picks up this acoustic guitar, playing it upside down, and he puts on the demo. And he's like, "I think we should do this." And he just shows this like harmony thing that he thinks we should do, and it's beautiful. And it's in the chorus, and um, like in the chorus, it like very briefly modulates. And yeah, just this magical moment where he just sort of tried this thing out, and it just sounded amazing. And this upside down acoustic guitar, and um, yeah, just to be a part of that with someone whose music I've loved for so long and stuff is just yeah, just absolutely crazy. And we had a great time working with him. He's an absolutely he's hilarious, and just a really nice guy to be around. And um, yeah, the songs would not be the same as they are without his input. And it's just loads of crazy things. Like he was in the drum room doing cymbal catches. There was, I mean, it's not enough in the single we just released in the outro. There are all these like China catches at the end, and he was like, "Oh, I want to do that." So he's just there, got Mike, he got the guitarist from an arena headlining band, just like catching our cymbals. It's absolutely mental. Um, yeah, super crazy experience. And we were lucky enough to open for Skindred in end of June this year in Bristol Sound as well, which was the week after Download. Like we thought doing Download was good enough, and then the week after we're opening for Skindred, which is just unbelievable. And to play the same stage as them, like to use the space yourself and play, and then the same evening watch them complete, like it's a masterclass. When
Oh
you
yeah.
watch Skin, like I mean, a Skin performance is a masterclass. Everyone knows that. But when you have played on, when you've literally stood there and done your thing, and then you watch them do it, it's so much clearer how all the little details of the performance, of how the flow of the of song to song and the crowd interaction and everything. It's just like, yeah, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. What an incredible experience for you. And I mean, I love how you said obviously probably seen Skindred more than any other band. I think that's probably the same for a lot of people because they tour so much. But actually, going
Yeah.
back to the accessibility point, yeah, I love Skindred for that because I saw him a couple of weeks ago in Ipswich, and barely anyone ever plays in Ipswich.
Mm.
Like that's another blocker for fans, whether it's financially or again, like anxiety over traveling or whatever it may be. But having to travel to the big cities constantly to be able
Mm.
to see a show, bands that actually do get out there and play the regional shows, like a big credit, Skindred, like probably the best at that because it seems like they'll play wherever. So yeah, another
Yeah.
great thing there. And obviously you touched on your release show, Signature Brew in London on the 20th. Again, listeners, there'll be a link in the bio. I suggest once you've listened to the EP, once you've well, you won't listen to the EP because it's on release day, but watch the video, listen to the tracks that are out, and obviously, if you can, get a ticket and head along to that release show because it's obviously going to be a great experience.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely incredible talking about this journey that you're on. We always finish off with the same question on this podcast, and it's a segment we call Set List Science because we just sort of bring up the live sort of sides at the end. And that reminds me, I should give out the social handles because, again, tradition, and I'm a traditionalist. So, fans, if you're liking what you're hearing, go and follow Mallavora online. Facebook is Mallavora. Hopefully, you'd find that without my help. Instagram, Mallavora Music. And I'm too old to remember to write down the TikTok, so you might be able to help me with that, Larry. But I
Yeah.
know you
It's
had to
just
hit the
it's just Malivora.
excellent. So yeah, listeners, definitely follow the band to stay up to date with everything coming from them. So set list science. The first part of it is literally just to say, I'm a massive set list geek, as I am with videos. I like to see what bands are playing, how they're playing it, what order they're
Mm.
playing it in. I don't know if you share that vision. So the main question of the subject is how much importance do you place into the structure of your set lists, and
Oh,
have you got any rules you tend to follow?
yeah, so much. It's so important. Yeah, you can't just play your songs in any random order. That's no good. I have the way we approach it depends on the show. So a lot of times we're supporting other bands. We have half an hour. Actually, at Download we had 25 minutes. Um, so that's a very interesting set list sort of thing because you've got 25 minutes to impress thousands of people who would never have seen you otherwise. Biggest thing you're ever going to do. Basically, no one will know who you are, so it doesn't really matter what song you play in terms of what song's successful or whatever. It's just play the songs that you want people to hear and what kind of statement do you want to make. So actually, what ended up happening for that was we played a song which we won't release until maybe the end of next year, maybe 2026. It might come out. So it's a song that really no one's going to hear for ages. But the intro, like we had a war contract for the first time ever, um, and this, like, I mean, to be fair, I will give this away. We are playing this at the headline show as well. So if you see us play this song, um, you'll kind of get why it's like this really epic, um, uh, quite metally for us, but it's yeah, just these like huge open chords at the beginning and this like crazy drum part, which I felt pretty bad about making Jack like biggest performance ever. It's like the most difficult drum part he'd ever tracked. It's like, right, can you do that in front of loads of people? Yeah, for download it was, the walk on and the entrance was really, really important to us, and then it's a case of having having songs that flowed really well in terms of key. I think obviously we all think about key with the songs that we write, but if you're transitioning between songs, you've got a key change there basically. So if that's janky, when you start the song, everyone's going to go. Ugh. So you've got to kind of think about that. I have to think about guitar changes as well because I play in different tunings, so I don't want to constantly be changing guitars every other song. Um, but we also do little riffs and jams and things in between songs because we want people who go to our shows to experience something else. Um, the last thing I want people to experience is to watch us and go, "Oh, it's just like the record," um, but they were stood there, kind of thing. I want people to be like, "Oh, that was different." And like every time we do a bunch of shows, like when we do this headline show, there's a bunch of stuff that we've never played before that even the people who have come to see us every time we play London. Um, there are things we're playing there that nobody ever seen, and I want, hopefully if we do that every run of shows, people realise, oh, every time they come, you've got to go because you experience these one-off little things, little riffs, little jams that transition between the different songs. And if in this instance we're doing a little acoustic bit from another song which won't see the light of day for at least a year, if not longer. And yeah, so for, for headline shows, you get a lot more scope to kind of tell a story. And with this particularly being an EP launch show, we are deliberately trying to, well, we are deliberately playing the EP in full. Probably the only time we'll ever do it because oftentimes it's just not practical to do it. But in this case, we're sort of making the effort to make it happen. And obviously, with having the break in the middle of the set as well for the access reasons, kind of means we have um, a story to tell throughout the show of our older songs that people will be more familiar with, and kind of building up towards playing the new EP in full, and then some little extra things that people won't know of. Yeah, but we always spend a lot of time as a band with a whiteboard, sort of rethinking the set list and how it all flows because although the audience might not know it literally, like they might not walk away and think, "Oh, I wasn't really a fan of the set list." Like that might not be a complaint anyone ever has, but when it's right and when it flows really well, there's just this sort of sense that you're putting on a really impressive production, and the big moments are massive, and there's quiet, vulnerable moments are at the right time, and it's if you time it well, it will leave a really really good impact on the crowd.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely an art form again, getting it to flow right, and you definitely passed the test, as it were, because I can see the passion you got for it, and yeah, absolutely love to hear it. And the final part of the setlist science segment now, the second sort of question that we put in there is something that we put in probably a year ago or so now because of the internet meme around peekaboo for adults, but it's a very simple question. It's just encores, yes or no.
Hmm. We've never done one. Um, it is a bit peekaboo for adults. It is a bit like that. Um, honestly I don't really feel strongly about it. I think it can work. I think I've certainly enjoyed them. For us, because we have a break and we
Mm,
for our headline shows we walk off 15 minutes anyway. So if we were to like do another one of those, I think
yeah.
that would kind of be a bit much. It's like peekaboo like twice. um, but yeah, I'm not against it. I'm not one of those people who are like thinks it's kind of silly. But also, I think it depends on the venue you're playing. I think if you're playing an arena and you can walk off, then you should, sort of thing. If you're playing a little basement room and you have
Mm,
to like walk through the crowds, you know what
yeah.
I mean? You can't just like disappear behind a curtain. It kind of ruins the mysteriousness of it all. Yeah, so like hide behind your amps or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, twice in the last year, bands that I really love that I've caught in small venues. And obviously, being a setlist geek, I've kind of looked what they're going to be playing in advance. So I knew, they're walking off, but I know there's a couple more songs to come. As soon
Mm.
as I've walked off stage, sound guys let them turn the lights on, turn the music on. And that I can see, like, one of them in particular, I could see the band going, "Well, a minute," but everyone's like left. And I was just like, I felt so like awkward for them. So, I mean, that's a tip for young bands, like warn the
Yeah,
the engineers
give
obviously.
your sound guy your set list. Give
Yeah,
your sound tech your set list.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. But yeah, there is a romance to them in general, actually, that I still quite like personally. But
yeah,
yeah,
there's for me there, there's actually one very particular show that I always reference when I'm looking at set lists, and that is that show that I referred to right at the start of the podcast about. It was Alter Bridge in November. Sorry, in Newcastle in 2011. Um, Luckily, they did a live at Wembley DVD for that show, so you can't see the actual show that I went to, but it's be roughly the same. And that was the show that like blew my mind as a little 14-year-old or whatever it was, and really really gave me the bug and made me want to be in a band. That was like that really really did it for me. So being aware of that, I've got notes on that set list and what each song does and why and where they break it up and um, where they put the acoustic thing in and yeah, how they use the show to sort of show off the different variety of like textures that are in their music. Because that's just one of the best shows I've ever seen, even though it was like one of the first. And I'm obviously biased because I was so young and impressionable, but it's a template that I always kind of go back to and just think when I have a set list, I'm like, well, let me just remind myself of that live at Wembley thing because that's kind of the blueprint. Um,
yeah.
and if you veer too far away from that, I think you're probably doing something a bit weird.
Yeah, well, I was at that Wembley show.
No way.
Yeah, so yeah,
You're on the
no,
DVD.
exactly. I love the story there, and I love that you got a thesis written about that set list. It's fantastic. So you definitely win that segment in general now, for sure. So yeah, no, thank you so much for obviously talking to me about all the great stuff going on with Malivora. Again, listeners, my big plug is to go away, follow the band, listen to everything we talked about, go to the show if you can. And yeah, just invest in this band because we want them to succeed both musically and obviously for everything to do with what you want to install within live music around disability is absolutely fantastic. So much credit again for you. And that's my final message, but I always give the final message to the guests. So what is your final message for the listeners today?
Yeah, I would just to kind of echo what you were saying there. I think what we're trying to do, obviously, what we're trying to do musically is one thing. I think that's pretty evident if you listen to us. If you like it, you like it. But what we're trying to do with the industry, with this band, is we are trying to prove that improved accessibility is really important and that it matters to people in this country who go to see shows. So we we are making as much noise about it as possible, and we will always do so as long as there are people who are going to come and see us. So if you like the music and if you get the message and you agree with it, yeah, come and show some support if you are able to.
Yeah, echo that completely, which is ironic given the name of your
Yeah,
EP. But thank you so much, Larry, for joining.
thanks.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Malavora. Do make sure you check out their new EP, Echoes, which is out on November the 20th. And of course, do follow the band across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. Finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Discover New Music podcast.